to our YouTube channel. In this video, we will gonna continue our web series AWS for developers, and we will see how we can create VPCs in AWS, and we will see the significance of VPC in AWS. So what is VPC? VPC stands for Virtual Private Cloud. And what does that mean? This means you can create your isolated environment in AWS. So what is the benefit of isolated environments? This means you can divide your resources as per your environments. Like if you have dev environment, production, staging, and QA, so you can deploy your all applications or resources in their respective environments. And what is the benefit? The benefit of having separate environment in AWS gives you ability to put some additional controls or security controls on your environment, and it also gives a security edge as well. Imagine your application, some of your developer deployed a application which is buggy in the development environment, and somehow someone able to get access to your development environment. If someone is able to access to your development environment, that access will be limited to your development environment, and the person will not be able to access to your other environments like dev, staging, and QA. By this, you will be able to provide some additional security to your infrastructure. AWS give and describe a way which can be a standard to set up your infrastructure. AWS says you can set up your app in infrastructure in three-tier architecture format. So what is the three-tier architecture? That means you have a, a layer where your database reside, which AWS says it should be a private subnet. That means there will be no internet. So your database will not be able to access by other parties, other cloud, or other environments. So your database will be more secure in terms of accessibilities. And then we have a semi-private subnet. In this semi-private subnet, we deploy resources that actually requires internet access. Like they might be pulling some information, they might be accessing some external resources, some external APIs, or maybe downloading some package from the internet while they are starting up or bootstrapping. So we deployed the application that actually requires internet access. And then we have a public subnet. In this public subnet, we deploy resources that actually need to be accessed from the cloud, like from the clients. So we deployed in the semi-private subnet, we deployed our business logic. And one thing noted to be here is the database is only accessible from the semi-private subnet. So whenever we need to apply our application logic or we need to access the database, so the resources which need to access database should be deployed in the semi-private subnet. And then we have a public subnet. The public subnet is the one where we deployed the resources which actually accessible by client. Let's say load balancers, let's say front end servers, let's say API gateway, etc. So these resources has exposure to the internet, but these resources could not access the databases. This is the way AWS gives you additional level of security. So this is a simplified way of setting up three-tier architecture. So let's see how we can create. So there are two ways you can create VPCs. One is the manual way, another is a dashboard wizard. So first we will see a dashboard wizard. This is the dashboard wizard that from where you actually create easily your VPC. So you can say the VPC name like development VPC. So VPC would be added automatically through the wizard. So here you can define your sub CIDR. This will be the main CIDR. You can say 10.0.0 or maybe 10.100 100.0.0/16. You could change your subnetting according to your requirement as well. Then here you can define a shared tenancy. AWS offers two tenancy, dedicated and default. Default will be the shared tenancy. Dedicated tenancy will be more costly, so we will go with default tenancy. Then we have a number of availability zones. That means how many availability zone you want to utilize. The availability zone is nothing like a data center in different geographical locations. So AWS, in order to provide the high availability in your production environment, or in your in your application architecture, you distribute your application in different availability zone. That means you spread your copies of your application in different data centers. So imagine if one data center goes down, so your application will be available on the other data center. So at this moment we can choose which availability zone we need to go with, how many availability. If we choose to 3, so you will see it automatically creates 3 subnets. Um, and here you can customize the availability zone as well, like you can choose your own choice of availability zone. Then you can specify the number of public subnet. I would say 3 public subnet for public. I would like to create 3 public subnet and 3 private subnet. And I would also like to create a NAT gateway in one AZ. Instead of multiple AZ, I would like to create a one NAT gateway. So if I create one per AZ, that means 3 NAT gateways will be created, but that actually increase my additional cost. So in my case, I am happy to go with one availability zone. We don't require any VPC endpoint. We will discuss later what is VPC endpoints, and we can just click. Once we will click, it will spawn up a VPC for us. This is a one way we can create a VPC, and another way is creating a manual VPC. So we can go to our VPC dashboard, and from there we can click on the test your VPC. From here we can click on the create VPC, uh, and we can say QA VPC. So this will be our tag, and we can specify a CIDR over here. We can say 10.200.0.0/16. This will be our CIDR. Tendency will be remain same. So we created a VPC. Now we need to create subnets. For this we need to choose our VPC. Now this will be our first subnet. We can give a name as like QA pub 01, and we can specify a specific data center as well, or availability zone. We say pub 01 will be in 2A, and here we can specify a CIDR as well, subnet address 10.200.0.0/24. And then we can add some more public subnet as well. We can say QA pub 02, and in the availability zone we can select other availability zone to make sure we are highly available. And then we can say 10.200.1.0/24. We have created 2 public subnet. Now we need to create 2 private subnet. We can say QA prev 01, and in the availability zone we are going with the same way we set up a public subnet. In that case, you can choose your own subnetting. I'm choosing my own. So I'm saying 10.200.100.0/24, and I am adding one more subnet, QA pref 02, and in the preferences I'm choosing 2B. And now we have created 2 public and 2 private subnet. Now it's time to create a third subnet. Uh, uh, we are now creating database subnet. So we are calling it a QADB 01. As we discussed, 3-tier architecture, we are implementing 10.200.200.0/24, and we are adding one more DB subnet, QADB 02, in the 10.100.200.201 actually. We will see. We are in good shape now. What we have done so far now, we created 2 public subnet, CIDR with 10.200.0.0, and another subnet 10.200.1.0. Then we created two private subnet, 10.200.100.0 and 10.200.100.0. Then we have two DB subnet, 10.200.200.0 and 10.200.200.1.0. So we are in good shape in terms of creating subnets. The next step is we need to create routing tables. Since we create three subnets, so we will be creating three routing tables. So we will be creating QA, public, RT, and we need to select our VPC. Once the route table is created, we need to add the subnet association. In this subnet, we will only add the public subnets. So which is QA public 01 and QA public 02. So the association being saved, now we need to create another routing table for private subnets. QA priv RT, select the VPC, create the route table and choose the added subnet association. From here, we only choosing the private subnets. Then we need to create a third routing table. That routing table is only for DB. So QA DB RT, we need to select the VPC, create routing table. So now we need to choose the DB subnets. We already discussed that DB subnet don't requires internet access. That is why we are creating separate routing table. So we did create routing tables. Now we need to create internet gateway. We need to click on the internet gateway. We are saying QAIGW and click on the click internet gateway. The internet gateway is created. We need to attach it to the VPC. From here, we need to select the QA VPC. So we are pretty much done with. Now we need to click on the internet gateway. So click on the internet gateway, click NAT gateway. We are saying QA and GW. We need to select a public subnet here. So in order to deploy your NAT gateway, first you need to set up the public subnet. So now we need to update our routing table as well first in order to create our NAT gateway. So this is our public subnet. We need to update their route. So we need to say add a route for everything and route the traffic to internet gateway, which is this. Save the changes and you are pretty much done with the setup and we are ready for creating the NAT gateway. So we are now up for NAT gateway because our public subnet is already created. Now we need to click on the create a NAT gateway, QA, and GW. Select a public subnet here. So we have a public subnet, QA. We need to find a public subnet. Yes, this is our public subnet. We need to allocate a private IP, elastic IP, and we are done. And then we only need to add a routing rule in our private subnet. So we need to update the routing table, click on the added routes, add route for everything. We are saying route this traffic to QNet gateway. So yeah, we are pretty much done and let's review what we have done. So first we create a VPC, then we create 6 subnets, two in each layer, two for public, two for private, and two for database. The reason being separating database because we are providing internet access on public and private subnets, and we already discussed we don't need to supply internet access to the databases. So that's why in the database routing table we did not define anything. We says the database routing should be locally. Sorry, it's a private RT. If we see this one, so we only says it only can be routable to local. So anything we spawn up in private database subnet won't be able to access the internet and won't be able to access from the internet. So we have created VPC, subnets, routing tables, internet gateway, and net gateways. So I hope this will help in order to understand the architecture, three-tier architecture in AWS. So if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like our videos. Thank you for watching.